Hello, everyone. My name is Jonathan Harrison. I'm very excited to be back. We got a bunch of good content to look at from GSER and analyze, and so I think I'm going to do a couple videos over GSER runs, highlighting some things that I think are important for teams to understand, and then I think I'm going to take a break from analysis for a little while and actually start to work on making a couple tutorials, like a line follow tutorial and a square up tutorial, and how to implement them, because I talk about line follows and square ups a lot, and I talk about how important they are, but I haven't really taught how to do them yet. So unless you already know what those things are from the past, then you're kind of stuck in a little bit of a situation where you can hear what I'm saying, but you can't really implement. So I think after a couple of these, I think I'm going to make some really good and explanatory tutorials that help people learn to do these things and understand why they're working in the way they do and how to overcome some common flaws. But let's go ahead and jump into it. There were a lot of interesting runs from GSER, but I've specifically selected some that not necessarily were like the highlight runs of the competition. This is a analysis, not a react, so I'm specifically picking out runs that I think I can analyze and highlight a core fundamental of what is important for teams to learn, and I'm picking those runs. And so I think this run in particular has some very interesting qualities to it that make it a good point of learning. So this is Dead Robot Society versus the Los Altos Community 453 team, and yet again, for this I'm going to be pointing out all of like very important things, like reasons why they're squaring up in this space and why they're not squaring up in this space, line follows, mechanical decisions on the robots, and things of that nature that we're going to help teams kind of think in the correct way when they're beginning to plan their run for the upcoming Botball year. So let's go ahead and get started. Both sides of the table have a lot to unpack here, and a lot of really good information. But I think a good place to start is with the Los Altos team create right here. So that's their big bot, and it's going to out of the gate, it's going to get bot guy, and then it is going to be working with the airlock for the rest of the time. And so let's try to hone in on that. I know there's 4 robots, but let's hone in on that, and let's look at some things that it does very well. And then there's one thing, or 2 things that I think that it could improve upon. And then I'm sure this is a very adept team. I'm sure they figured out later that I just want to point out the same steps that I'm sure they went through, so that other teams can see the steps that need to be taken if they don't have as much experience as a team like this. So you'll see right out the gate they are going for bot guy, so they're going to get out of the start box as fast as possible now and get to bot guy, but they have to strike a fine line between getting to bot guy as fast as possible, because bot guy is contested points, and they know, and this is actually something that we'll see later, I think, is that Dead Robot Society actually goes for bot guy. They have a little hook. I believe that is it right there. This hook is actually going to try to grab bot guy, and so Los Altos knows that they need to get to bot guy first, and so they are going fast, but they need to strike a balance, because the faster something is in Botball, usually the more inaccurate it is. So they're still going to square up, but just very effectively here. So let's go ahead and play this through, and then I'm going to back up and point out what they do to make this accurate. So that is the bot guy grab, and you'll see they do pick it up faster than DRS, who comes in right there trying to sweep bot guy onto their side. So you'll see both teams are trying to do that exact thing. So now let's look at the points at which they can maintain speed while being consistent. So you'll see this line here was actually had a decent bit of curve to it, but they don't care about that. Now they're going to turn here, and they're going to drive past the line. They do not square up on that line because they don't need to. I'll point out why in a second. Because remember, we're looking for our X, our Y, and our rotation. So they have none of those things so far. But what they're going to do is they're going to square up onto this line, which gets them two things. It gets them, so let's think of our grid here. We're going to just assume, since this is the video, the way the video is posted, this is our X, this is our Y, and then we obviously have our rotation. Now, that means they now know exactly where they are in the Y coordinate on the plane, because you'll see they do square up on this line right here. Right there. They drive forward, and you can see their bot correct onto that black line. Now, what they're going to do is they're going to turn. Now, they technically got their rotation from this square up, and that's what they're going with. And so that is why they turn so slow when going towards bot guy, is because they already have the rotation locked. If they're to turn now drastically, they're going to mess up their rotation a little bit, because they don't get the rotation from here on out. Now, so they have their Y, they have in their rotation from this. Now they need their X, so they need to know how far they are this way. Well, the Create has bump sensors in the front, and so what they're doing is they're driving into this wall here until they feel that bump, and that is what is checking that X off of that box. So let's go ahead and get some of this stuff out of the way, and then we can see them drive. Oh, we missed it. You'll see them drive, bump the front of that Create into that wall, back up a little bit, and grab bot guy. So that is how they consistently grab bot guy. And I watched this run many times at GSER, and they were very consistent with getting bot guy. And so now, here is where this bot has some issues. Is now they've gotten bot guy. They squared up very well to this point, but they do begin to take some, this is practices that are not ideal. So you'll see here, and we're going to talk about how to fix this. You'll see here the bot. So let's look. Okay, we've gotten bot guy. Now let's count. All right, we've grabbed bot guy. Now we've made a attempted 180-degree turn. Right, that's 180 degrees without checking ourselves on our rotation. Now we're going to drive very quickly, which is going to knock our rotation off a little bit, so it could be either or in the direction. And then we're going to turn an additional supposed 90 degrees, because we're trying to travel down this line here, to get some palms. But that is 270 degrees without a square up, or without any way to check their rotation. And so they are off quite a bit, and you can see when they start this drive, they are off quite a bit, and you can see that they drive straight off into this direction when they're meaning to be going in this direction. You'll see they actually have a clever little system for collecting that airlock. I'm sorry, not the airlock. So what their goal is to take these palms, and now they don't have a very effective bulldozer, so these are kind of more not essential points, just side points they're trying to get. They're trying to bulldoze these palms in this direction. With this dumper that they have on the front of the robot, they're trying to lift the transporter up and then push those palms past this lip of the transporter while it has been lifted up by this ramp. So that when they back up, those palms are now inside the transporter, getting them, I think, 100-ish points. So you'll see they drive forward there, and they back up thinking that they now have those palms, because they were assuming that they were driving down this line. But some things that could be done to make sure that they are rotated on this line. Now, in this area here, it's a little bit of a dead space for learning, for rotation. They would have to go back here, but then they're right where they were, so they're not getting any closer to their goal. The other place is back here, or all the way back here on this wall. Those are not very optimal spots for what they are trying to accomplish. So, my suggestion would be to add a line follow sensor right here, so that even if they are here and facing off in this direction like the bot is now, a line follow sensor would adjust with a curve and would get them back onto this black line and down the road like they are meaning to. And that would be one way to check their rotation as well as their X coordinate, because that means that they are exactly on this line, so they know where they are. And then they could use other means, maybe bumping in the front or checking the pipe here to know where they are on their Y. So they could check off that XY rotation system once again. But you'll see they do drive off into the corner pretty bad, as they are not meaning to. So now we have to kind of keep track of two things at once. The bot thinks it's here. The bot is here. The bot thinks it's here facing this way when it's actually here facing this way. But now here's the power of constantly squaring up. They now, thinking that they are right here facing this way, are going to turn. So they do, so okay, yep. So they think they are facing this way. What they do is they drive forward here and they slow down a lot because they think that this bot is going to be driving into the transporter. Because I did this in my run as well, is I have my create drive into that bump, drive until it bumps into this pipe. So they're bumping just like they did over here to get their position. Now that's only getting them their Y coordinate. They would be getting a lot more accuracy if they were to add that line follow. And I'm sure that they did go and add a line follow or something like that later on, because this is a very adept team. They could also use the inbuilt line follow sensors that are along the bottom of the robot, but I find them to be less accurate. So now you'll see that they're driving until they bump right there, thinking that it is this, okay? But now they're going to back up because they think they're here after they've just bumped this, and they're going to turn 90 and try to square up into that wall. Well, here's the thing. It doesn't matter where they are. Driving into that wall still works, and you'll see how much of a correction in rotation they get there. It's drastic. But now they've immediately corrected themselves, and they now know their rotation, and they don't know where they are in this direction, but they definitely know where they are in this direction going this way. So they've already gotten one down. But this is a smart team, so they know what they're doing, and they're going to come in and they are going to square up on that line again. They've corrected themselves, and now they are going to set bot guy down where he goes. So they kind of got a little lucky there because they never actually checked their Y position, and you'll see that actually screws them up a little bit here. But oh no, they checked their X position before they grabbed palms. So they drove into this before it bumps so that they can accurately grab that right cube. But you'll see, now that they've squared up so much, they're already back on track, and the bot is exactly where it thinks it is. So now they can drop these cubes effectively, which is incredible, because you saw how far off they were earlier, and now they're able to go through a whole square up process. They square up here. They square up on this line twice, actually. And then they're going to drive until they bump here, and they're going to grab those other ones. So you'll see they're constantly checking their position on the board because these bots are inaccurate. You'll see they back up on this line multiple times. There are reasons for that. We'll talk about those more in the actual square up tutorial that I do. But it has to do with the line follow sensors not being directly in line with the wheels. But now they didn't check everything when they had bot guy, but he was in a roughly close enough position that they were able to go re-grab him and put him on this airlock. And so now you have bot guy, in just a second here, you have bot guy and two red cubes on the red side of the airlock, which means it's sorted and you've got your multiplier, which is a good healthy amount of points. That's nothing to scoff at. But now let's go ahead and take a look at I don't have too much to say about this robot. It's fairly straightforward. I think anything that I could say about it, I will be able to say on DRS's ring bot as well. So I think we're going to just skip this robot and go ahead and look at the other side of the table. Also for the sake of this video's length, so it's not too long. But let's go ahead and take a look now over at DRS's ring robot. We'll take a quick look at their create, but I think we'll look at the create more in my finals, the finals analysis, because DRS does make it to the finals against Qubit. And so I think we'll look at the create for Dead Robot Society in that final. And then by then we'll have talked about the ring robot, and so that we will not have to cover it then. But let's go ahead and look at the ring robot for DRS. So you'll immediately see it backs up, and it just does a slight turn and adjustment to rotate everything into place where it needs to. And so you'll see the way that DRS grabs rings is the claw is static. There's no driving in and grabbing onto the rings and pulling them up. It is just a forklift type effector that slips up under the rings. And so you'll see there's actually no claw or servo on on the thing that grabs the rings up. Now there's a servo here and there's a servo here, but that's not the same as but it's not grabbing the rings itself. And this is for the sake of this is probably for the sake of saving servos. Now DRS is a very good team, so they can afford to make mechanical choices like this to save servos. Oftentimes, especially with very high point robots, if it's needed, don't try to save servos or motors, because that's where all your points are going. So don't make exceptions on your high scoring bot. But DRS is a good enough team that they were able to do it this year. So you'll see they forklift underneath the rings and they lift it up, and you'll see those are not actually being held from the other side. They're just being held up like this and supported. So if that bot was to tip forward, those rings would just fall out. There's nothing actually holding them in, so they're more being cradled at this point. But you'll see they are going to, and you'll see they have to keep that claw upright so that those rings don't tip out, and they're just going to slide and drive onto that pipe right there, and they're going to push them forward a little bit so that they can lift that claw back up and go for the second set. Now, a couple things to point out. This bot is extremely accurate, but and the reason it's accurate is because this bot is constantly checking its X position, its Y position, its rotation through a couple of methods. So you'll see here that if you look closely, and I think I can get a slightly better image of this. I know it's not the highest resolution, but you can see that there are wheels facing this way on the DRS robot into that PVC pipe. That is because the Dead Robot Society is constantly curving purposefully into the pipe. The reason they're doing that is because they not only have a wheel in the front here, but they also have a wheel in the back here. And so they are driving on this pipe like that. And so they are constantly being rammed into the pipe, which means they always know where their X position is because they are rammed up against this pipe. That's where they are. They don't have to worry about that. They're always there. They know their rotation because you've got a wheel connected here and a wheel connected here, and those are locked into a line connected to the rest of the robot. So the robot is going to be rotated properly according to those wheels. And the way that they are getting their last one, so they've got their X, they've got their rotation, and the Y is to see there's a black tape line here and a black tape line here. They have sensors on the front and back of the robot that they are bouncing between. And so they can get their Y position on this board just by hitting this line or driving back until they hit this line. You'll see a lot of the robots, the ring robots at GSER did this, and that was a way that they could consistently and accurately know where they are, was bouncing between these two lines and riding up against this pipe. This robot does almost exactly the same thing. They have a slightly different claw grabber, but they do ride up against the pipe with wheels and then back up and back and forth between those two lines. So it's very similar. But you'll see they can now drive forward, and they're going to reach down and just slide those forks. And they do have to turn slightly here, but it's so minimal that they're not going to get off at all. So now they just drive forward here, and they're just going to curve straight back into the pipe, and so that they can roll up against it. And they're going to just drive back until, we're on that black line. We now know how much to back up, so we can set our servo and drive forward, getting those rings on properly. Now, another thing to note about the Dead Robot Society robot is that they wanted to constantly be up against this pipe, and they wanted to do it in a very clean way that had little room for error. So their claw, actually, if the bot is here, their claw sticks out and is all the way over here. It sticks out, and you'll see, you can't really see it now, but this part of the bot is over the board, off the edge here. And that is so that they can just line up their robot, and even though the robot is here, the claw is lined up here on this pipe, ready to set those rings on. You'll see other teams did this differently. They have the claw in line with the robot, and then the claw just rotates over to the side to slide onto this pipe. But I argue that this method is actually more efficient because it is static and it has no, it is less fair, it has less failure points. Now obviously there is failure in any robot. You can never have a failure-proof robot, but this does take out a lot of the error when trying to sit on rings, because you don't have to worry about setting a servo to the specific position and trying to calibrate where this pipe is, because it's different on each table. They just know that their claw is sticking out off the side. That's why you actually see them lift up the servo over the top to get over the ring stand, because otherwise it just collide into the back of it. That's something very smart, and you'll see that that's it. That's all the run does. It goes back and forth 2 times. And that's 3,200 points. And so the simplicity, and there is an elegance in simplicity, because this robot is not complicated. Now that anyone has seen this, even a very beginner team could replicate the motions of this robot, because they don't even, when they're dropping this down, they're not even doing threads on their servos or anything fancy like that. They are just moving the servos through the command line like many teams can do. This is not a hard run, but I'm not trying to take credit away from Dead Robot Society here, because yeah, this is not a hard run. So why didn't everyone do it? Because it takes a lot of thought and intelligence to be able to come up with something simple that works elegantly like this. And so that's another reason I'm trying to expose people to these Botball Analysis videos, is because they need to see the simplicity and the efficiency of top-level robots. They're not over-the-top complicated. Now, some are. The Austrians, I think, and Cubit, I think, are a little bit of an exception, but I think it is very possible to have simplistic designs and it work. And now, finding those simplistic designs and knowing exactly what works is very difficult. Especially, I am not immune to this. I mean, we did less than stellar this year because our robots were too complicated, and that's just the way things go. Oftentimes, if you complicate things, things get complicated, and that's the last thing you want at a competition, is for things to be complicated. You want it to be simple. You want to be able to go run your robots, and you want to be able to effectively complete the tasks that you have set out to do. And so I think DRS does this very well, because this robot, I would bet that obviously there was some tweaking, but I bet this robot didn't take that long to code or program. There's not much to this run, and a lot of that was probably copy and paste. The first ring set and the second ring set probably went just about the same. And so really there's a lot of simplicity here, but it's very intentional and well thought out simplicity. So before I keep talking for too long, let's go ahead and look at the create for DRS, because I think the create has some things that I think yet again speak to simplicity, but a very intentional simplicity. So the first thing that they do is you'll see that their claw. Let's take a moment here. Their claw has two static wide arches like this, and then two servos here and here that close into those. So and those are their two palm grabbing chambers, basically. And then also another feature of this robot is the stick here that is intended to grab bot guy. But you'll see not only can these paddles go inwards, outwards to close the two claws, they can close together to grab central things. And so they grabbed the cubes off this line here basically because they needed to get them out of the way. Because what they're doing later is they're going to come down the line this way, and they're going to be collecting all of these palms. And so they need those cubes to be out of the way. So they're basically going to go dump them in another zone where they also do score points. So they're going to drive on the table, and they're very intentional to not screw up those palms on the line. And you'll see they did try to sweep bot guy there, but he was gone. So they're just going to dump those cubes down, and you'll see there's never a time where they're not squaring up. They're always line following. You'll see. Okay, so now they're already into the main thing, and you'll see. I love the motion here. I believe that the line follow sensor is actually on the claw itself, because there's none down here, and you can see when the claw is lifted up. When the claw is lifted up, there's no line follow sensor down here. There's no line follow sensor down here, so I think they actually have one. Let me see if I can see a wire. No, it's too blurry, but I believe that they have a line follow sensor. But you can see the motion; it is line follow. You see they turn and they begin to line follow. You can see the jostle of line follow. And now they just drop and they take turns opening one side of the claw, closing the other side. And that is just isolating those red palms and the green palms into their two stacks exactly where they need to be. It's super simple, but it's extremely elegant. And because of its simplicity, it can work effectively over and over again. And so, when I say simple, I am not saying there's a difference between simple and basic. This is not basic. This is efficiently clean and simple. And so now they have a good grip on all of those palms. They're going to square up into that back pipe, and now they're going to line follow with the inbuilt sensors on the Roomba. They're going to line follow all the way down this line, and now they're going to turn. And you'll see something I want you to note. They don't. Because I immediately, the first time I saw this run, I was watching it in person, I was like, whoa, they just line followed all the way down this line and they're not going to check their distance. They checked it here, but that's a long way to travel without checking your distance. I would have, personally, when I was first watching and did see the rest of the run, I would have squared myself up on the transport like we saw the other robot on the other side of the table do right here multiple times, and like my bot did. But they know they don't need to. They don't need to start their XYR system just yet, because they know that would be redundant, because they're going to do it in a second in a more desired location. So they square up on this wall, and then they turn and they square up on that wall. Okay, so there they go. They've got their corner that they've squared up into, so now they know exactly where they are. They didn't need to square up over there. And now you'll see some nice precision moving with the claw here to get that airlock positioned where they need it. And now they're just going to drive that Y, and that Y is also going to act like a funnel that moves that airlock exactly where they need it to go. It's going to set those palms down when they need them. And you'll also see, I didn't mention this on the Ringbot earlier, but the Ringbot has something else it can do, because basically I'm going to assume this is what happened, because this is exactly how it would go down with us. We would finish this bot the building would take a decent amount of time with that claw. This is a nice little claw. And then we would have put rings on in about 3 days. And we would all sit around and be like, well, now what? Right? Now what is correct? Now what? All of the palms are already out of the way. We can't do anything with the palms. We don't really need the cubes. We can't do anything with those that much. What else can this robot do? So they slapped a stick on the back, and now it lifts the airlock. That is something that is effective and is getting them points. So that is, I applaud them for that. I don't think that, I mean, that's good. That's very good. I think once you can actually, I think that's a healthy way to build a robot, is not start thinking, oh, we're going to do this, 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 and this. I think it's, okay, let's complete one goal. Now that we've done that, what else can we do? Now that we're done, what else can we do? And so I think that makes it aligns things in a way that makes it more efficient and effective. A side note, look at this awesome still of Roger right here. That's a great face. Someone should make that background or something. But like I was saying over here, this Y is a natural funnel that is moving the airlock into the correct position that they want. So that run is very simple. And even this robot, it drives down the line, right? Dumps some cubes, sweeps a bot guy, and then it line follows down this line, moving 2 servos. And then it squares up, and it lines follows down this line, squares up 2 times, and then puts the claw on the airlock. That is not difficult. It's difficult to think of, but if you were given this exact task to do, and that was already been thought out for you, you could probably execute it. And so thinking of these runs and how to execute them properly is the hard part. Another thing to note, just as a little side thing, DRS has very good habits. You'll see that she has a clipboard, and what she's doing is she's actually going through and she is scoring the run herself. Yes, this judge right here with that scoreboard is going to do it, but DRS knows and has been in the game long enough that they know that sometimes judges can miss some things. And so if she goes through and she scores the run herself, when the judge comes to her and the board and the score is slightly different, they can be like, hold on a second, what did you mess up on? Now, obviously, you could go through line for line and check the judge after they say, does this look correct? Will you please sign? But that's going to take time. And so in this 2 minutes, while you're standing here watching the robots, why not occupy your time with scoring the run yourself? So when the judge comes to you, you can be like, yep, that's what I got. So just another little thing that I think DRS does very well. I think that's a good habit. I don't do that habit. I should. But just something to note that it is a good practice, and a healthy practice. But overall, both of the sides of the tables I think had excellent runs. The Los Altos team missed the transport because they had that very long rotation without checking themselves. But I think overall that is not a heinous crime. I think because of the excellent use of square ups later on, that they were able to correct later on. And I think that is something that is that helps their run be effective even with failure like that. But I think that is going to be it for this video. Let me know if you liked it. Please, any feedback is super appreciated. I loved getting to talk to everyone at GSER. I had so much fun. It really was a blast. And I hope I get to see all of you again. But for now, I'm going to keep making Botball videos to help people. And yeah, see you guys next time.